Last year's 2024 TUF A14 was one of the best small gaming laptops of the year, and in my opinion, a strong contender for the best. So today I'll be reviewing the 2025 TUF A14. Is this guy still a cheaper Zephyrus G14, or has it gotten even better? Well, let's find out. And please like and subscribe if you like these type of videos. The TUF A14 looks very low-key from the outside, and not as tacky as other TUF gaming laptops. This could easily pass as an office laptop, which is good for if you need it for school or work as well. It has a mostly plastic body, but the top lid is actually made of metal, so it feels very sturdy, especially for this price. Now, unlike its TUF brethren, it's also impressively thin, and probably thinner than most non-gaming laptops. And it's also very lightweight. Actually, it is the lightest gaming laptop you can buy this year. It does have the specs of a gaming laptop though. It's not top of the line, but trust me, this thing can game. With a TGP of 115 watts for its RTX 5000 GPUs, this has more power than some laptops double its price. But for some odd reason, it can only be spec'd with the slower Ryzen chips of this year. Last year's TUF A14 went up to a full-fat HX370, which was one of the fastest laptop chips at the time. So the 2025 model is actually a downgrade CPU-wise. That RTX 5060 does pack a punch though, so we'll see how it does in the performance benchmarks. Its port selection is downright impressive. It's got basically every port you can think of, minus an Ethernet jack. It uses a pretty compact 200 watt power brick, which isn't too heavy, and this brick uses that new Asus power plug, which is nice. You could always just use a smaller charger for on the go though, since it supports up to 100 watts of USB-C charging. Now, its keyboard might seem very familiar. It reuses the same keyboard from last year, which itself was reusing the keyboard from the old ROG Flow X13 laptops. And this keyboard is simply great. It has a satisfying tactile click to it. And personally, I think this is one of the best keyboards on a laptop. It also has these 4 macro keys at the top, which can be reprogrammed. This keyboard has a white-only backlight, but it gets very bright, and I actually need to turn it down a bit in darker areas. All in all, definitely a good keyboard. And the same can be said for its touchpad. It uses its space very efficiently, so it's pretty big, and it's made of glass, so it feels premium and sturdy. The click itself is also nice and tactile, and you don't need a lot of force to press it down. Overall, just a nice premium touchpad. It also has a great display at this size. A 2.5K 165Hz IPS panel is about as close to the top as you're gonna get. I'm really glad these smaller, high refresh rate screens are becoming more common. Playing fast-paced games on here feels awesome. It also gets plenty bright enough at a maximum of 500 nits, so outside use is definitely possible, especially since it has a matte coating on it. It handles reflections quite well. The IPS panel has pretty and vibrant colors, and the blacks got pretty damn black, even though it's not OLED. I don't really see any downsides to this screen. It does basically everything right. It's not too high of a resolution either at 2.5K. Games look nice and sharp on it, even if you turn it down to 1200p. The display hinge is nice and sturdy, and it doesn't wobble if you type on it, even if you're a pretty rough typer. And hey, it even opens up to a full 180 degrees. Just don't sit on it, because it's not a 2-in-1 laptop. So far so good, right? But what about this little guy's speakers? Overall, they sound pretty decent. The speakers themselves are on the bottom, so they sound a bit muffled and lose some quality when you pick it off a table, and they're a bit lacking in terms of bass. But it definitely still sounds better than 99% of laptops, and for most people, it will sound awesome. The webcam and microphone are pretty decent. They're not impressive by any standards, but they're definitely good enough for video calls or any virtual meetings. Now let's finally look at performance. How much power did they stuff into this tiny little chassis? Well, for Cinebench R23, it gets pretty good scores for its size, but it does have a worse CPU than the 2024 TUF A14. So it lags behind its older brother, which is a bit embarrassing. In 3D Mark TimeSpy, however, it scores very good. The RTX 5060 is on par or even faster than some RTX 4070 laptops, so definitely an upgrade from last year. But benchmarks don't tell you everything, so let's run some actual games on here and see how it does.
Huh? Okay. I love you, man. Huh? Okay.
Kinda game.
You motherfucker, man. You motherfucker, man.
I'll hack you to pieces. Ha! You'll never take me down.
Uh-oh.
The TUF A14 is definitely a good gaming laptop. That RTX 5060 handled every game splendidly and could even run at its full resolution of 2.5K. But obviously, it did do a little better at 1200p. Since this 14-inch display isn't super big, you can barely see the difference between Full HD and 2.5K. So I would actually recommend playing at 1200p. You don't really see the difference, but you get a lot higher frame rates. Now sure, that 5060 does only have 8GB of VRAM, so it might be limited in the future. Now I personally think they could easily fit an RTX 5070 in here, but I think that competes with the more expensive models a bit too much, and I don't think Asus wants that. But this model easily handled every game new and old, so I think it's definitely good enough for gaming. And to make things even better, it actually has great battery life. I tested it in two scenarios, under light use and during gaming. In the light use case, I played a YouTube video on it until its battery died, with its display at full brightness, at 60Hz, and with its dedicated GPU turned off. And here, it lasted a little over 8.5 hours, which is pretty damn long. And you could make it last even longer if you just turn the brightness down a bit. Now in the gaming test, I played Battlefield 1 until its battery died, with the same settings as before. And it lasted about an hour to an hour and a half. Remember folks, don't buy a gaming laptop expecting to play games on battery. Now, such a thin body with relatively high power limits does come at a cost. In the heaviest of games, the CPU will occasionally reach up to 93 degrees Celsius and the GPU up to 86 degrees. This is still safe and not within thermal throttling range, but it is on the warmer side. You shouldn't worry about overheating or anything like that though. These chips never reach their thermal limits. The keyboard deck stayed relatively cool, but did warm up after very long gaming sessions. The keyboard is kept cool by the inside fan though, so around WASD it stayed nice and comfortable. But of course, the fans did ramp up during gaming. It is on the quieter side compared to the average gaming laptop, but it's still definitely audible. Most people play games with their headphones on anyways though, so meh. Now normally, a small laptop means very little upgradability, because there's not a lot of space in the chassis for modular components. But with the A14, Asus just said fuck it, and gave this thing a lot of freedom. It has an upgradable Wi-Fi card for if you want even faster internet. It's got two M.2 SSD slots, so you can upgrade your storage without removing the Windows drive. And it has fully upgradable RAM, so you can stuff this little thing with up to 32 gigs of memory. So far, this thing seems like the perfect device. So what does it cost? Well, it isn't a budget laptop, but compared to other models this year, it's definitely on the cheaper side. You do have lower spec models, but this RTX 5060 one is probably the sweet spot. And for what it offers, it's pretty damn cheap. The 2024 model is still available though, and quite a bit cheaper, so definitely consider that one as an option as well. I'll put Amazon links for them both in the description below. Now for the big question, is the 2025 TUF A14 worth it? Absolutely yes. Sure, it only goes up to an RTX 5060 with 8GB of RAM, and last year's model does have a faster CPU than this one. But other than that, this laptop does everything right. It's incredibly thin and light, especially for a gaming laptop. It has a great keyboard and trackpad. It has a gorgeous high refresh rate display, and it handled every game I threw at it with ease. But it is competing with last year's model, which is quite a bit cheaper and also just had all of that. My advice is this. If you buy this thing primarily for gaming, I would get the 2025 model, because the faster GPU does make a difference. But if you don't use it for gaming very much, or just want to save some money on that pretty big price difference, get the 2024 model, because it does have a faster CPU. But there is a third, more expensive option, the Zephyrus G14. The TUF A14 is basically just a budget G14, so what does spending a little more give you? Well, let's find out in the next video, where I'll be comparing the two head to head in full detail. Now let me give a huge shout out to my YouTube members. Soundwife, Thomas, Inky, Mr. Frosty Dude, Dropzone1, Martijn Snijkers, Flimsy, Aki, Disco Volante, Daniel, Mr. Nuke, Sebastian, Christian Sands, Real Elf, Suryansh, Alan, Toasted, Eric the Red, Wesley Rhodes, Michael, and Ghost Data. If you become a YouTube member, you get early access to content of mine, a shout out at the end of every video, and you'll also be supporting me as a creator to make these videos. And of course, you'll also be part of the Cool Guys Club. So you can use cool emojis like these in the comment section. So join the club if you're interested. And I will see you all in the next video. Bye bye.